Thank you, Malcolm. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege to be able to speak to you this morning about extracting maximum value from a mature basin and make the case for fiscal incentives, particularly here in the North Sea. And I've been allocated 10 minutes this morning to share some thoughts with you. I think I can contain it within that time. There's a big hook that will take me away if I speak too long. So to outline my talk this morning, what I'd like to highlight is the UKCS's development cost history over the last 10 years, to reflect on what we're actually finding and developing, again, over the last 10 years, and to put that into perspective around the Taxation Task Group's request to Treasury for extensions to the existing allowances and for additional allowances in things like brownfields and West of Shetlands opportunities. I'd like to talk about why fiscal change is required now, and actually, as an example, highlight where it can actually be shown to be working. So where can a good fiscal environment, opportunities, and a high price of oil actually cascade to some tremendous growth opportunities, something that this basin could actually deliver if we could create that right environment. I'll finalize with some external pressures that we all face, including Treasury, but still talk about how we can construct this solution within that external pressure environment, and then with some final conclusions on how we can go forward. So to start, here's a graph that shows our unit development costs in the UKCS over the last 10 years. Back in 2002, we were developing oil at the cost of £3 a barrel. This year, it's closer to 11. We've lost a third. We're down to 1/3 of a capital efficiency in the basin today than it was 10 years ago. And there's really two reasons for that. One is the opportunities we're exploring are smaller, and actually, obviously, there's cost inflation on delivering it as well. But, the cost of developing a barrel is becoming more expensive. It's now 3 times more expensive than it used to be. Our basin has been in decline over that same 10-year period, and we are clearly not replacing our reserves and not replacing our production in the basin today. What we're finding, on average, is 20 million barrel accumulations. Now, they in themselves won't justify their own infrastructure. They require the existing pipelines and the existing infrastructure to be exploited. These smaller fields also tend to have higher declines, and as we develop them, what we find as a basin is we're spending more and more time running faster and faster and actually just standing still. Or in some cases, and in the last 10 years, we're actually falling behind. And if you put that field size finding and development in context with what DEC suggests as another 14 billion barrels of sort of yet to find, yet to be developed oil above what we have in our activity service as recoverable, it's going to take 46 years just to develop those production opportunities at the current rate of development. It's going to take 400 years for us to find them at our current rate of exploration success. So clearly, we've got to do something material if we want to actually extract the full potential of the basin. So, Taxation Task Group was formed a year ago. It's an industry-wide group. It's been well and tremendously supported by industry colleagues. And what we have done is we've put together the case. We were looking for a fiscal policy for oil and gas in the UK that can support growth, support jobs in our mature basin. We've asked specifically for brownfield and West of Shetlands new field allowances. So a new allowance targeted to the high cost of developing production in existing fields, the high cost of developing in harsh environments. We're asking for extensions on HPHT and small fields to capture a larger set of that portfolio. And what we've been able to lay out for Treasury is the opportunity to incentivize all of those opportunities at no net cost. No net cost to Treasury. And it's a cost to industry, but at no net cost to Treasury. And in fact, revenue generating, value creation for Treasury. So to be honest, we think it's a pretty simple scenario to accept. And we're hopeful for some progress in Budget 2012. Why is it necessary now? Well, none of us are getting any younger, and our assets certainly aren't getting any younger. Our aging infrastructure is a real challenge to keep online. And even with all of our grand plans that we can lay out today, 10 in 10 years' time, 50% of that infrastructure which exists is expected to be decommissioned. So we are losing our infrastructure. Our basin is aging. 10 years ago, we were in the top 5 oil-producing provinces in the world, and today we're number 18. 10 years ago, we were the top quartile for investment. Today, I think we're in the lower quartile. And again, that 14 billion barrels we haven't even found yet. Are we creating the right fiscal environment, the right process, the right environment to actually have that ever found, let alone developed and produced? This basin, though, and I do feel very passionate about this, has so much more to offer. Most mature basins are the ground where innovation is fueled. Is the easiest place to find oil is in places where you've already found it. And enhancing the recovery of existing fields in many jurisdictions is a place where many people look to create value. And at today's commodity price, $124 a barrel, around there it changes a bit, but in that order, we should be fueling innovation in this basin, and we should be actually extracting these barrels. And if you look around the world, you can actually find places where they're doing this. So I was reading recently in a Bank of America article, and the headline caught my attention. It says, North Dakota takes on North Sea. I thought, oh, that's got to be worth a read. So I'm flipping through that, and it highlights in there this phenomenal growth in North Dakota's shale oil production, where it took 8 years to produce the first 100,000 barrels, 2 years for another 200,000, and in the last year, they've added another 400,000 barrels a day. They're the fastest growing oil province in the world, and on the back of their result, they've made the United States the fastest growing oil country in the world. And in 2012, on the back of all that activity, the United States is an exporter of refined products for the first time in 60 years. So how'd that happen? Well, North Dakota is one of the 10 best places in the world to invest. And that's out of a list of over 200 provinces around the world. They're in the top 10. And you're in the top 10, you combine your opportunities in your basin with your talent and your capital, and you can have phenomenal growth. They've got 24 billion barrels to recover, and it's not low-cost oil. It's $60 to $70 a barrel, but they are getting after it in a massive way. And again, by 2015, they'll be bigger than our entire North Sea. And they're not in a harsh environment. They're in the benign prairies of western USA. So, this is our competition. This is who we go to bat against when we're trying to create wealth and create value here in the North Sea. With the right fiscal policy, we can also build growth in this basin. We all have external pressures. Governments need funds. Last week we heard there's no money for any more handouts in the UK. I can understand that. Unemployment is rising. There are definitely short and long-term pressures on all of us. Right now, oil price $120 a barrel. In my opinion, that's a high price. I think the long-term price premise many people record and many parts of the industry reflect is sub $90 a barrel, and that really is balancing two issues. You've got demand destruction above $100 a barrel. People drive less. You've got OPEC needing an $80 a barrel to maintain their promises. And if they can't deliver that, they'll actually shut in their production. So basically, long-term price premise is $90 a barrel. So in the short term, we should be seeing oil prices fall. Our OPEX is continuing to grow. We've got all this unemployment and recession fears. Yes, there's lots of external pressures on us. But I do believe the oil and gas industry can actually be a key part of Britain's growth agenda. I know we can do that at no net cost to the government, but all that's required is action, and action in Budget 2012. So conclusions, if it doesn't come across, I'm tremendously passionate about what we're going to do as a basin, what we're going to do as an industry, what I'm going to do as a company in the North Sea. But I can't help but be frustrated or empowered by what we're actually not doing. And if we stand still, we will be left behind. North Dakota will surpass our production in 4 years if we just allow ourselves to continue to decline. Our basin's health check is not as positive as it should be, and our infrastructure has a half-life of 10 years. So, again, our industry, we can be a key part of Britain's growth agenda. No net cost to the government. Actions required now to retain our talent and to direct our capital to this basin and to allow us to extract the maximum value from this mature basin. And if there ever was a time, it is now we do need a positive fiscal change, and I hope we can achieve it in March. Thank you very much.